Hello and welcome. I'm your host, Grant Johnson from Red News, and I'm here to talk about the news for today. For today's podcast recording, I'm going to be talking about Tou Thao and how he was sentenced to 5 years in prison for his involvement in the death of George Floyd. Mr. Tou Thao was one of the few individual police officers that were involved in the death of George Floyd that had sparked nationwide protests and have made conversation about police and their role in communities more widespread across the U.S. Tou Thao had told the court that he was simply doing his job and there was nothing malicious in his actions. During his trial, the judge had asked him if he had any remorse or regret for what had happened, but Mr. Tou Thao insisted that he was simply doing his job and is ready for the consequences for simply doing what he was trained to do. It's important to mention that with this type of case, that there has been a lot of ripple effects across the U.S. and abroad regarding conversation about police and their roles in the different communities that they serve. Tou Thao will be serving 5 years in prison, and it is likely that he will never return to be a police officer once he is released from prison. I just want to say that this type of whole situation regarding distrust towards police, I think that it's not the best type of view when talking about the police, because there are people that are willing to risk their lives and not see their family in order to serve the different communities that they'll probably never fully get to know on a personal level. And it's also important to recognize that there are bad individuals in the police departments across the country, which there are always going to be those types of individuals that will hurt the reputation of the communities that they serve and represent. That will be all for today's podcast recording, but if you didn't already follow the Red News Official Podcast, you can follow the podcast on platforms such as iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and other platforms where you can listen to the Red News Official Podcast. You can follow Red News on different social media platforms including Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Twitch, Rumble, and Pinterest. For more Red News, you can go to the Red News Official website where you can read up on news articles. Thank you for listening to today's podcast recording. I am your host, Grant Johnson, and I will catch you in the next one.